The very first production that Theatre for New Audience ever did had one element. It was a trunk. And when I saw the Fiasco production of Cymbeline, there was one element, and it was a trunk. And I was very amazed by that trunk. You had a much better trunk than we had. We got invited before the Victory was renovated to do Romeo and Juliet. We used the space as an old movie theater. And it was the first Shakespeare on the block in about 60 years. And we've now, this production that we're supporting of yours is the third that we've done on this block. And for me, that has something to do with continuity and artists passing along things to artists, and somehow through tenacity and insanity and love of some great writing and literature, you keep doing it. And people of other generations keep doing it. And Cymbeline has got a lot of people in it. It's usually a lot more people who play Cymbeline. And there are, of course, productions of Shakespeare that have small casts. There was a Romeo and Juliet called R&J, about 4 Catholic schoolboys who discover this play at night and their own sexuality. There was a production that I saw recently done by Irina Brooke, Peter Brook's daughter, in which 7 men who are the stagehands of a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream are waiting to set up the play, and the cast and the scenery and everything has been delayed. So they go out to the audience and they say, "We're really sorry, we can't do the play." And they, "Okay, you want us?" And so they put on the play. They improvise putting on the play. That's that. I recently saw a Tempest, a 3-person Tempest, where Prospero was a psychiatrist. But what's the same in these productions is, these 3 that I've seen or come to mind, is that they were all conceived by a director. Now, think of music. Think of a string quartet. There's no conductor. Or think of the Beatles. The players conceive how they're going to make it. So that's what they are. And that's what's very special about them. The directors are within them. The fight choreographer is within them. The musicians are within them. The composers are within them. And that was very powerful to me when I saw this, is that it wasn't the director conceiving something, it was an ensemble. Really what this theater company is doing is taking our creativity and collaborating and saying, okay, you've made this beautiful piece, let's see how it could develop further and go into this theater, the Victory Theater, where we once played. When I saw this originally, I saw it in a room. So Fiasco made the room the setting. But now you're in a theater that is in itself a setting. It's a decorated theater. So what Jean-Guy did was to say, let's make a theater within a theater. And he created a disc, like a magic circle, in which the play is going to happen. But Fiasco is never off stage, and they sit upstage of this disc, enter onto it, enter off it. So we always see them making the play.
I was thinking on the way over about how when Jesse and Noah and I began talking about the play, one of the things that we hooked into early on, and the reason we decided to kind of invest in these ideas about illusion and belief and multiple actors taking on multiple identities and things like that, was because of our connection to one of the large themes that we feel is a big part of Cymbeline, which is this idea that none of us ever know where we are in our own stories and journeys and lives. And the fact that this day has come is actually proof that that's not just a literary idea or some sort of theme to try to communicate to the audience, but a very lived, personal reality. One of the amazing things about partnering with TFA&A is that we get to work with Jeffrey, we get to hear from Aaron, we get to partner with this whole staff, we get to work with the people that TFA&A has built relationships with over the years, people like Robert Williams and Cicely Berry and Jean-Guy, Lacotte, and I mean, this is an extraordinary opportunity for us to benefit from working with all of these other teachers and artists and stuff like that. So we really view this as an opportunity to deepen our own work as developing artists, not merely to put this show on again, but to find out how we can do more and get more out of ourselves and out of each other. And very glad to be reigniting Shakespeare on 42nd Street, certainly. Part of what we try to do is to figure out how can we connect some of the dots that aren't connected in the play. You know, one of the nice opportunities you have with classical plays is most of the really big physical stuff tends to take place off stage, so you can decide to like do it. You know, like there's a scene where he's in England and then he gets banished, and then the next scene the guy says, "Hey, welcome to Italy," and that's how we know we're in Italy. But we try to take advantage of that opportunity to say, what would it be like to actually see him going there, or to see him getting sent away? And then so we try to find a way to match up these kind of physical events, traveling events, combat events, things like that, with music so that they have a kind of sustained thing. Then what happens is you can develop a musical vocabulary that's actually plugged into the storytelling, right? So it's not just music kind of for its own sake or to sort of set an atmospheric tone, but we start to try to use the lyrical content, the stylistic content of the music to start to send signals to the audience about where we are, what's happening, things like that. Part of why we do the play this way is to increase all of our investments in the thing that we're all doing together that goes beyond the individual scenes that we're a part of. And obviously, those of you that know our production know that that's something that we're going to continue to try to deepen. But that's also another way in which the 6 musicians of the show function as continuing their investment in the story even when they're not on stage.
One of the ways I understand Cymbeline was Shakespeare giving a challenge to himself in a way that would, 300 and more years later become, a byword in the name of Dickens, which is that you just see him he's juggling and he's throwing balls in the air, and you see how many he can keep up. And just when he's got the flames and the running chainsaw and the feather and the bowling ball, and you can tell it's all going to go horribly, horribly wrong any moment. And then in a flash, he catches them all with one hand. He creates for himself the most complicated plot he possibly can, and then resolves it at the absolute last moment. Well, what do we really need? How many people do we really need? And that tied in with something thematic that we started realizing about the play, as Ben has already mentioned, that there was a lot of misconception going within the play. People misconceiving where they are in their own life, in their own story, misconceiving the reality of who is standing before them. And we realized that doubling could be instrumental.
Or quadrupling in Paul's case.
Or quadrupling wasn't merely, it was pragmatism, but it wasn't merely pragmatism. It was actually thematic. In understanding that, we gave ourselves this similar challenge. Well, how do we manifest all of these characters? Every character in the play has to show up at the end of it in order for it to resolve. And that became instrumental in our conception. Why 6 people? Why the doubling? And those 2 parallel tracks ran, and we followed them as long and as far as we could.
What can I say about it? The costumes are very active, I would say. They go in line with our rough and tumble kind of feel of this show. They feel contemporary, but they kind of feel like they could be maybe harking back to a medieval time or something. We're also making sure that these guys hang together as an ensemble. That's incredibly important with the palette, with the shapes, with silhouette. We want to make sure that these guys always look like an ensemble, and then use the acting to step out from that and play these characters. There are also a few kind of trick elements here and there too that we've incorporated. Like the trunk, the costumes do have to play multiple roles. So a lot of time it's a matter of, does this thing transform into another thing? What happens if we reverse it? When Imogen becomes the boy, we magically take off the skirt to reveal, a pair of pants, and the bodice becomes a vest. It's very important for these clothes to be flexible, and the changes need to happen very quickly, so we can't bog the actors down with trying to, change into one thing and another and having everything rigged and everything. They're very simple things that have very, very simple changes to help move the story along. And so I'm not inhibiting the actors' ability to do their jobs.
We've explicitly said the fact that no one leaves the stage.
Yeah, no one ever leaves the stage.
The thing with the light that I found is it followed the path of music. To me, it felt like music in the play of how they were supporting the energy of what was happening, if that makes any sense, and what we were able to accomplish with what we had. I mean, it was very minimal, but at the same time, we were able to use that to sort of underscore what was happening. So I think, this time around, it's sort of honoring that track, but at the same time, just accentuating what's there, if that makes any sense.